This is Lake Mead, 30 kilometers from Las Vegas. Covering an area 10 times the size of Manhattan, it's the vital source of water for the city. Out in the middle of the lake, the La Lorraine is already on duty. On board is Steve Marashek. Steve works for the Southern Nevada Water Authority, and it's his job to collect samples from the lake in order to monitor the water's purity. Because although the water might look extremely clean, without being treated, it can still contain pollutants and pathogens, which means it's far from safe to drink.
It's still got stuff that needs to be taken out. It needs to be free from pathogens and things like that.
Every week, Steve collects samples from different depths and areas using a special plastic collection device called a Van Dorn. And after careful labeling, they're sent to the nearby lab for testing. Each sample must be carefully analyzed for harmful bacteria and pollutants. Every week, over 100 different contaminants are checked for, and should anything be detected, they can make sure the water purification process will then be able to remove it. Meanwhile, water from the lake is already on its way to the purification plants. This vast, sprawling site is the River Mountains Water Treatment Facility in Henderson. Despite covering 400 acres, this huge facility is almost completely automated. And Ken Schoolman is one of the few staff needed to monitor the plant to ensure it's running smoothly.
This is the nerve center for the entire plant. It keeps me aware of the water quality going through all the filters and what I have to do and what I have to adjust.
From this space-age control room, it's up to Ken to ensure enough water is being treated to supply the entire Las Vegas Valley. More than 500 million gallons every day.
We supply about 90% of the water going into Las Vegas so they can take showers, they can drink, they can water their plants, and live a normal life.
But killing potentially dangerous bacteria and viruses which can live in water isn't easy. Obviously, you can't simply add poisonous chemicals to kill everything. So this plant uses a very rare and unstable form of oxygen called ozone. Ozone is virtually impossible to store, so the plant must constantly generate a fresh supply. To make it, they feed oxygen into these vast steel tanks and create a massive electrical discharge, which causes some of the 2-atom molecules of oxygen to split and recombine into 3-atom molecules of ozone. Making ozone this way doesn't come cheap, and in a single day, the Southern Nevada Water Authority uses as much electricity as a typical American home does in 3.5 years. As the ozone is produced, it's driven into huge tanks containing the lake water, giving it a fantastically cleansing bubble bath. What's more, it also instantly oxidizes many suspended minerals, leaving just a residue of insoluble compounds suspended in the water. To remove these insoluble compounds, Ken directs the water into another series of tanks where it undergoes a process called flocculation. First, ferric chloride is added to the water. Then it's pumped into huge tanks. The ferric chloride causes the particles suspended in the water to stick together. And with the help of a quick stir, they congeal into a visible residue called floc. Now all they have to do is remove this floc. That happens here, using these 2-meter deep filter beds. Each bed is filled with a combination of anthracite coal and sand, and as the water flows through, the floc is filtered out. The result is clear, odorless water. The resulting sludge is then washed out of the filters and pumped into these huge tanks to slowly dry in the baking sun. At last, the impurities extracted from the lake water are revealed in all their dubious glory. But the filtered water is still not quite ready to be sent to the city. First, it's disinfected with chlorine which is added at a concentration of 1 part per million. This kills any remaining pathogens left after filtration. And just 75 minutes after arriving at the plant, the water can be pumped to Vegas, allowing residents to enjoy a plentiful supply for drinking, washing, or simply having fun. But even after it's been used once, they can't afford for the water to be wasted. Here in the baking desert sun, they need to conserve every drop. Because not only is Vegas situated in the middle of a desert, its residents have developed a passion for golf. And with more than 30 golf courses dotted around the city, they need a small ocean just to water the 7,000 acres of grass.
During the summer, this golf course uses 3 million gallons of water a day.
So, to keep the courses green, after the water from Lake Mead has been used once for washing and drinking, it's recycled. Its journey through the city's system of sewers and drains brings it to here. This is the Durango Hills Water Resource Center, where they tackle the unpleasant task of separating raw sewage from water. Now then, generally speaking, once we've eaten something, most of us don't like to see it again. So if you're of a fragile disposition, you might like to turn away now. The sewage is first filtered and large bits of trash and waste removed with an Archimedes screw. It's a kind of giant pooper scooper, and it lifts the solids out of the water and returns them to the main drain. But the resulting water is teeming with dangerous living pathogens. Most of these can be removed with a combination of chemicals and filters. But to ensure the water is completely free of disease, Durango Hills also grows its own army of biological killers. These good bacteria, known as activated sludge, are added to the water in the plant's vast underground tanks. After several days, these bacteria destroy nearly all of the living pathogens, and the water can move to the last stage of its treatment. Mounted inside these tanks are vast arrays of special bulbs which bombard the water with ultraviolet radiation. This UV radiation destroys any remaining bacteria, leaving the water safe enough to be used for supplying the city's golf courses, ensuring the golfers' greens are green. But even now, the water still hasn't quite finished its journey, because some of this recycled water eventually drains into washout streams at the edge of town. Streams which eventually flow right back into Lake Mead, where it will remain until one day it begins its extraordinary journey once more.